don't worry about the ghosts getting in. They can slither through keyholes and under doors, you know. Now just be quiet. Hear that slithering? Ah, good. Now that we're all here, we can begin.
Welcome back to Deviatus. This is the first episode of Season 2. And I gotta say, it just feels so good being back. I had actually taken a little hiatus to take care of some personal things and to prepare for the next semester of college, which I kind of teach on the side for one of our local community colleges. But we're back today with a gigantic episode with tons of notes, articles, and photographs. You're going to want to head to my website to view all of these extras. I was fortunate enough to be provided with just a ton of extra material that obviously you can't see or read just from listening to the podcast episode. But our guest was very, very nice, and she supplied just a ton of material for you to look through. So when you're done listening to this episode, or if you're able to while you're listening, head over to deviatus.com/Pridemore for the show notes on this episode and all of that extra material that she was so gracious enough to give us. And I've got to just take a moment out before we really dive into things to say thank you to everyone who's downloaded all of the episodes. I've had 19 episodes so far. And, you know, it's even over the hiatus, everyone's just been really downloading consistently daily. And I don't know when you actually draw the line to say, you know, this isn't a new podcast, but I still feel like it's relatively new. It's only 19 episodes in. This is number 20. But with our regular subscribers, this is going to easily put us over the 10,000 download mark for episodes. So just a really huge thank you to all of you that are listening. Thank you to those who have really, started communicating with me via email and, Twitter and Facebook, as well as Instagram. I've been getting a lot more feedback. I've been getting a lot more emails, and I love it. Just keep it coming. So that said, I have had a few emails asking how people can support the show. There's really several ways you can do that. Most methods are free. And the only reason I have a paid method option is because I actually wanted to create my own hat with my new logo on it. If you've seen the Deviatus podcast logo on the social media accounts, you'll know what I'm talking about. So once I made my hat, I thought, well, why not have that available for anybody who wants show swag? So if you'd like to take a look at that, you can go to cafepress.com/Deviatus. I've got a few items there that you can purchase with the show's logo. I actually, if you've followed me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you'll have seen me in the hat that I ordered. All proceeds from purchased items there go to support the show. It goes to the hosting for deviatus.com, the website. It also goes towards Libsyn hosting for the audio files. But I don't really care if you spend money or not. I'm just glad you're listening. There are two very important ways that you can help support the show. Number one is just leave a review. If you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, TuneIn, or Google Play, any of your Android apps, whatever you're listening on, you can rate and review the show. That will help me gain a little more popularity for people who are looking for this kind of material. Anyone interested in paranormal, if you basically go rate and review the show, they're going to see it more visible in their feed. And the other way that I can think of, doesn't cost anything to you, is just simply recommend it to a friend. If you know somebody that's into the paranormal and you want to kind of get them hooked on a new podcast, then that's totally free, and it helps me out a lot. So thank you for all of the support you've shown me thus far, and I am so excited about today. Today is our Season 2 premiere. Now that we're back in full effect, I want to start things off with a bang. So this is going to be a multi-episode event covering the Sallie House. I may even have some surprises lined up for you guys before we dive into other topics. I'll just say the conversation you're about to hear is really just a peek into the happenings at Sallie House. Today's guest has had paranormal experiences since childhood, and she eventually began her own paranormal research team with her family called the Pridemore Paranormal Group. In addition to the numerous paranormal investigations she conducts across the U.S., she volunteers regularly for the Atchison, Kansas Chamber of Commerce, conducting tours of the infamous Sallie House. The Sallie House, if you haven't heard of it yet, is rumored to host no less than 6 spirits that influence visitors with visual manifestations, audio anomalies, feelings of dizziness and nausea, objects being cast across rooms, and in some cases, physical harm in the form of scratching and bruising, all of which our guest today, Denise Pridemore, has experienced there. Now, personally speaking, I remember seeing a television show in the 1990s called Sightings about a family who was being terrorized by unseen forces, and it really freaked me out. The video showed on camera the husband being scratched and blood drawn like right before your eyes. It wasn't until recently that I really found out that the family was Deborah and Tony Pickman, and they were living in the Sallie House at the time the documentary was made. And when the paranormal group that I go researching with said that they were going to be visiting there, they actually went in October of 2016. I was super excited because I learned this at that time, and I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if that stuff's still going on. One final note before we get to the interview, though. Just wanted to thank Denise for being such a good sport throughout this extended episode while she was sick. She was not feeling well at all during this, and her voice didn't sound quite like it usually does. I know it can be really difficult to speak, especially and sound clear, through the audio in a microphone while you're sick. So without further delay, here is Denise Pridemore from Pridemore Paranormal. All right, so before we dive into the Sallie House, what can you tell me about some of your early life experiences with the paranormal?
Well, early life experiences with the paranormal have to do with a lot of family stuff. I happen to have, I can't prove to anyone that I witnessed my grandmother being killed, or that I witnessed my father being killed. The thing is I was 4 years old when my grandmother died, and she died in a car accident. And my grandfather walked away with a couple stitches. Mm-hmm. So what's bad about this is that he was in jail when I was born for killing someone. Okay? So keep that in mind. I'm sitting there, 4 years old. They tell me Grandma died, and I go, no, Grandpa killed her. Grandpa killed her. And they're going, no, it was a car accident. Well, I find out later on in life that she died from 2 broken arms, 2 broken legs, and a broken neck. Okay?
Oh, my gosh.
The 2 broken arms and 2 broken legs, there were no seatbelts in the car, and they ran into a pole on a bridge in Baltimore. And it was her side of the car. Mm-hmm. She's terrified of vehicles, and so she had a tendency to throw her arms and legs out if she was afraid that somebody wasn't going to stop. I mean, everybody's seen people brace for like that in the past. But the broken neck is what I saw. I saw that it was broken after the accident. And so my whole family was like, no, it was an accident and everything. And like, okay, I'm 10. Had an argument with my dad. My parents were separated. And he called and he goes, I'm taking you guys to Newport News, Virginia for 4th of July. And I was like, I don't want to go. I hate you. I hope you die. 10-year-old kid, That night, he was killed. And, of course, the guilt that goes along with that doesn't help. But that night, I saw what happened. I wasn't there. I was 27 miles away. I was with my mother, and my grandfather stabbed my father in the liver. My dad ended up bleeding to death. So I have a grandfather who's not a very nice man, basically bordering on serial killer. So I got up the next morning, told my mom. I said, hey, Dad's dead. And I told her how it happened. And my dad's girlfriend and my mother are sitting at the kitchen table. The girlfriend's witnessed it, and her jaw dropped, and she told my mom that's exactly how it happened. How does she know?
Wow.
And so after that, before the funeral, we had to go to Virginia. We lived in Baltimore, so we had to drive to Virginia for the funeral. And my mom goes, you can't tell people this stuff. They're going to think you're crazy. So needless to say, I have had out-of-body experiences in the past. Have I had any since? Not that I can count on. Not that I can tell you is 100% factual. But these 2 things, my family now accepts as being fact. That I was there, whether I was there physically or not, I was there. I saw it. And then we ended up living in houses that always seemed to be haunted. Well, it could be my dad was following us around wherever we went. People laugh about the flushing toilets. If I didn't flush the toilet in the middle of the night, more than likely it was going to get flushed. My dad hated the toilet not being flushed anytime, okay? Anytime. And in the middle of the night, I had a tendency to not flush the toilet to wake up everybody in the house. And it would happen every house we lived in. 5 minutes after I'd walk out, the toilet would flush. And, with 4 women in the house and everybody's asleep, you're sitting there going, okay, whatever. And my mom, one time, she even called me out on it. She goes, "Why'd you flush the toilet?" I said, "I didn't." Because she hated it too. We were, lived in Baltimore. Water wasn't expensive, but it was still, you're wasting water if you flush it every single time. It was just a thought at the time, So it would just basically flush on its own. And she didn't believe me until one night she saw me get up, go back to my room, close the door, and right after that, the toilet flushed. And she's like, "Well, that's weird." My mom finally accepts that I see this stuff now, and she's good with it. In fact, she listens to my radio show and stuff, so that makes it really kind of nice to be accepted. I've had people tell me, "Why didn't you tell us this before?" And I said, because, it's just the way that it is. You just don't go up and start telling people, "Hey, I see spirits." Right. Even now, you don't do that. Because if you do, they're going to look at you and go, where's the guys with the straight jackets? Or, "This woman's crazy. We need to get out of here." Unless you're in a place that's haunted. And they're there to see something haunted. It's not something you just bring up at the grocery store while you're checking out, You don't tell them, "Hey, all the bread on the floor back there is because Spirit threw it at me as I was walking through the aisle." Which people have seen. When I walk through the grocery store, bread, cans, things will fall 10 feet behind me all of a sudden. It's weird, but it's life. I've gotten used to it.
Wow. Well, before you had those 2 experiences, would you say you'd had any sort of types of, psychic or maybe even like sensitive experiences at all? Or do you think those events kind of triggered that?
I don't remember before I was 4 years old. Not perfectly anyway. I do remember some things from when I was 2, but they weren't paranormal related. Maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe I knew a lot of things I didn't know that I knew. But I'm going to go with I don't remember before then. So I knew after I was 4 and I saw this thing with my grandmother, it was every day. There's always something. There's not always something now. There is a lot of somethings, but not always every day.
And are those things that are typically things that, other people could witness, or are they also including things that you might feel or get a sense of that maybe people around you don't?
That happens a lot, where people they don't see it, they don't sense it. There are things that they do sense, and I'll tell them, "This is what I see, this is what I'm feeling right now." And I'm going to tell you, I'm not psychic, I'm not a medium, I'm just a mom, a tour guide. I'm a data analyst, for God's sake. I deal in facts. So it makes it really difficult for me to tell people, "Hey, I saw this thing, over here, and it doesn't look like a person." That is very hard for me because it doesn't seem to be concrete, fact-based. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can't prove or disprove what I saw. That's the only thing. I can't prove it. I can't disprove it. That's the part that really kind of bothers me about all this.
Right. Well, and you sent me some drawings via email that I do want to bring up later. Some that, as you said, don't look like they're people. But I kind of want to lead into your entire family decision now to become a paranormal research group. What kind of factors weighed into that decision?
Well, first thing is that my husband showed an interest. My children showed an interest, and my children, at least 3 of the 4, say that they see stuff. But the funny thing is a lot of times they see the same things I've seen. So there is a little bit of validation. My oldest daughter, She saw stuff when she was younger. She has not seen anything since she became an adult. My third daughter, she still sees stuff. Maybe it's because we got involved in this and we kind of fostered it a little bit more. And she loves going on paranormal investigations with us and stuff. And for anybody out there that's listening, my oldest is 30 and my youngest is 17. It's not like they're 10.
That was going to be a follow-up question, but thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. And so this one daughter that goes on the investigations with us, she's going to be 24 this year. And actually in a few weeks, she'll be 24. And yes, we did start taking my youngest daughter, who's 17. She started going to the Sallie House when she was 12, but she was already telling us about things that she was seeing in the house at the time. And she doesn't see as much as she did before because she doesn't want to see it. Right. She wants to witness spirits that look like people. She doesn't want to witness spirits that don't look like people. I told her, I said it's all or none. Things like that. But as a family, the family piece is getting smaller and smaller. It seems to be basically me and Ron. And so technically, I guess, instead of a research group, we're independent paranormal investigators at this point. Unless all the kids come, it's not really a paranormal group, right?
Right. Well, I think there's a lot to be said about that. And, I'm sure you've faced some criticism for having your youngest go with you, but I mean, I can tell from my own personal experiences growing up and things that I've seen that, it wasn't until my late 30s until I actually started seeking information about them. And I'm sure that anything she's witnessed is probably scarier than anything, you see on the TV shows. So, you got to kind of weigh, like, what is the child experiencing versus, your goals in going out and investigating.
Right. And we always protect her. We always make sure that that they're all protected with, prayers and religious, what religion they feel that they are, that they go and they cover themselves with however they need to. I have counseled them on it enough times to where they know that they're going to be safe. They don't understand why mom's not safe, but it could be because all my energy is making sure they're safe.
Do you really have ever fears about any sort of negative consequences for either you or your family when you're conducting these investigations?
We do, and that's probably the reason why we've gotten out of taking the youngest on most of them. She's only gone to public haunted places. We haven't taken her on paranormal investigations in people's homes, no residentials, nothing that that we thought was going to be detrimental to her. Mm-hmm. We haven't taken her to the Sallie House really since Ghost Adventures aired in 2015. Mm-hmm. We haven't taken her there, mostly because of the fact that after that aired, there were some changes that happened, and I don't feel that it's safe for her to be there now. Right.
I remember that episode, and thank you for sending me the picture of you with Zach. Which is that your youngest in the picture as well?
Yes, that's the youngest daughter. That was the last time she was actually at the house.
Okay, and I can put that picture on my show notes with your permission, of course.
Sure. Anything I sent you can use.
Okay, and then I kind of want to go back to one thing you said, where you were kind of seeing some validation in the things that your family was seeing as well as you. How often does it occur that you see the same thing at the same time?
It may not be at the same time, but it'll be within the same period. Mm-hmm. An example was a few years ago when my daughter was in high school. So it's been, 6 years ago? And she sent me a message, and she goes, they found a body down the road. I said, well, it's not your dad. Just being sarcastic because we'd been arguing that morning. Mm-hmm. And I just told her it's not your dad. She goes, well, it's a woman. And I said, okay. And we get home. I get home from work, and we're talking about what was going on. I said, yeah, they found a woman's body down the road and across the street from a friend of ours' property in a ditch. And we're talking about it, and it comes on the news, and Lauren and I both point at the TV and say, that's the woman we saw. She was in our house. And she had come to Lauren first, and Lauren said, go see my mom. She'll be able to help you. And so she came upstairs. But what was funny is that Lauren told me, she goes, she was wearing a Papa John shirt. She goes, that's really strange that that's the shirt that they would show her on the news. And she just thought it was really strange that she would see this. And I said, well, maybe with us being on a main road, maybe she was already passed when they drove by, and she was looking for help the whole way. And here we are, probably like a lighthouse going, hey, there's all these people in here that can see you. Go in there and visit with them.
Wow.
So, and, I feel like she passed over after I talked with her a little bit, but it was just very strange when we're sitting here talking about it, and on the news it comes on, and with her face and the whole story, and my daughter's going, that's so strange. She goes, I sent her to see you. And I was like, wow. It was a validation that I never expected.
Right. Well, it's certainly something you can't plan, or you can't, it probably just feels good to, like you said, just be validated, or at least have that kind of backup in your mind that, hey, I'm not the only one experiencing this, and there's validity to it.
Right. And see, my husband, he's this, well, he started out, he always liked the paranormal, always had an interest in it, but he's kind of more, well, he's like me. He's a data kind of guy. He's fact. He's an electronics technician. He deals with all kinds of stuff that a lot of people don't deal with. So he's one that he'll debunk it. If he can, he'll debunk it. And I'm going to say that he's skeptical of things that he's seen. But, a few months ago, well, it wasn't a few months, it was only a month ago, back in December, we had, somebody was going to go do an investigation, and before I go to the places sometimes, I get all kinds of stuff comes to me beforehand, and I can't validate any of it. Only the person that I'm going to go see, it can only be validated through somebody at the location. And so I sent a message to this person that we were meeting, and I said, I don't know what this means. I said, this came to me last night. I said, it was being yelled at me and spelled at me. And it was Bex, B-E-X. And it kept going, Bex, B-E-X, B-E-X. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, it doesn't mean nothing to me. So I sent this person a message on Facebook on Thursday morning. I said, it was laughing and it was yelling this at me. I said, I don't know what it is. And he goes, is it a demon? I said, I don't think so. I pulled up my demonology dictionary, or my demon dictionary, and I'm looking for it, and it's like, nothing. Look it up online, can't find nothing. Get there, and I walk around the back side of his car, and his license plate said BEX.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I said, this place knew you were coming.
Wow.
And he was like, I didn't know my license plate said Bex.
He wasn't even aware.
No, and he goes, I didn't drive my car to the paranormal conference that you were at with me. I said, well, how would I remember that from August to December? Anyway, something random like that. And he goes, if my car had been there, you might have seen it and known it was me. Well, I said, possible. He goes, but I didn't drive my car. And it's like, okay, well, good. I'm glad, and so it was just very strange that came to me. We went to another location and 13 spirits came out, and we've been able to validate 10.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and this place is going to be on TV on February 10th on Paranormal Lockdown. I'm not on there. Mm-hmm. We went after Paranormal Lockdown we went to this location. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out, because I think it'll be a really good episode.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that show. It seems to be getting better and better. Let's kind of shift gears and talk about the Sallie House, because I know you have a lot of experience there. What kind of... Well, and let me kind of backtrack too. In in researching for this episode, I always like to go online and see if there's any new information. I actually found some old videos where family, the husband was getting scratched on camera, and this was from several years ago. I think
1994.
Right. I saw it originally in the 90s. I was still in high school, which I'm aging myself. I graduated in 95, and I remember being in high school watching this, and I was just kind of connecting the two. I'm like, oh my God, before I really even got interested in, paranormal anything, I had seen this, and I think it was one of the things that sparked my interest because of, some of the visual things they saw in that house. But I didn't realize at, 30 or 20 years later, I would be actually talking about the very house.
Yes.
So
that was Sightings.
Yeah.
And Sightings actually went to the house with the Pickmans at least 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
They moved out before the next visit, and the next visit, somebody else lived there, and that person would not allow them past the room, the dining room.
Wow.
Wouldn't let them check out the rest of the house. And that's how I saw it the first time too, was in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sparked my interest as well. I lived in Kansas City, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how far Atchison was. We didn't have, the internet wasn't everywhere in 1995.
Right.
At least not for me.
Right.
I was busy with babies. I had 3 kids under 12 that I was dealing with, and I saw it. I saw, not long after that, I saw a haunting, and then, different places, and we really got interested more and more into, okay, well, this is what it's saying on Sightings. This is what it's saying on a haunting. I did not know that they could lie about the history. They can't lie about what happened to Deb and Tony, because that did truly happen, and it is all written out in Deb's book, The Sallie House Haunting, A True Story. I really recommend that book for anybody who wants to know more about the Sallie House. And this is not even the whole story. It was too long, so they had to cut out some stuff. But she's busy working on another book now to get more of the information out of what happened to them in their 18 months that they lived in the house. And it was only 18 months, and they've got, more than these 270 pages?
Mm-hmm.
Well, more than 270 pages of a book to talk about. So I highly recommend that. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it from Sallie House, SallieHouse.com. There's a place there where you can buy it. If you buy it from their website, they sign it for you, Deb and Tony both.
Okay.
Just heads up. But, they can't lie about what happened to them, because they were actually involved in some of that. Now, I was disappointed in a recent one. It was Paranormal Case Files,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. I was very disappointed in that, because they took some liberties there. Said that they were there when the Pickmans lived in the house, and they weren't. And I love Joe Sertone. He had nothing to do with it. His part was all truthful. But the show itself took some liberties with stating that they were there in the house when they lived there and when they weren't. And that is all documented in the Sallie House Exposing the Beast Within. This may even be out of print now, I'm not sure, but you can get it on Amazon, and the author is Joe Sertone. And they talk about their 3 days in the house, just 3 days. And all the haunted stuff that happened to them. And I can see it. It talks about they did a blessing on the house, a clearing. And when they left, they thought that they had taken care of it. And 3 months later, nope, done. In fact, they would have left the Sallie House back in the anniversary of them leaving would have been today, from when he wrote this book. So that's interesting. So
it's all very timely.
Yes, it is. I actually started reading the book 2 years ago on the day that they went to the Sallie House.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of weird. So, but yeah, I think those are some truthful accounts of things that have occurred in the house. And Robbie Thomas, he also wrote Paranormal Encounters, and there is, for like 6 pages, his experiences in the Sallie House. There's not a whole lot of things that are written about experiences there. Historically speaking, though, the history doesn't really match up with the urban legends very well.
Oh, interesting.
The urban legends say things like that a doctor lived in the house and that he wasn't married, but he had an affair with his African-American housekeeper, mm-hmm. and that they had a love child together, and that the child died of pneumonia, that their love child died of pneumonia in where the nursery is, in the Sallie House. That's one of the stories. Another story is that a doctor lived in the house, and that someone knocked on the door in the middle of the night with their sick child writhing in pain, and he had to do an emergency appendectomy on her, but he didn't have enough ether to knock her out. It knocked her out for a little bit. She woke up, and he had already started cutting on her, and she stood up and lashed out at the doctor, and she died. Not true either. No proof. Let's go with that. No proof of any of this.
Okay.
There's another story that was they did a made-for-TV movie for it. It's called Sightings, the Heartland Ghost. Mm-hmm. Okay, we know that Sightings was taped live. I mean, we know that. But this movie took some liberties in it and said that there was a doctor who lived in the house, and his wife had an affair with a slave. And when the child was born, it was obviously not his, and he threw the child out in the snow to die. Mm-hmm. Okay. All of these are not true. There is one thing that is true in all of these. A doctor did live in the house. That is true. A doctor did. Where did these stories come from? Have no clue. I have suspicions. A couple of them came from writers. One, I have no clue. The Chamber of Commerce there uses the botched appendectomy. I heard another one recently that I can't even repeat it. It's just so absurd I can't even remember it. But what happened in the house that's true is the house was built in 1867. They started building it, and the family moved in 1871. They owned property on the other side of their house as well. And in 1872, the patriarch of the family, M.C. Finney, passed away. Mm-hmm. He was only 51. Do not know what he died from, but he died in the house, and they had his funeral in the house. Okay, very common in 1872 to lay your family out in your home.
Right.
In 1874, M.C. Finney's father lived with them as well. He died in the house, and they laid him out in the house. His name was Charles Catharines. Later on that year, Richard Edwin Finney, he was only 18 months old. When M.C. died, his wife Kate was pregnant. So M.C. never met Richard Edwin. So he was 18 months old. He passed, and they had his funeral in the house. Okay. Goes on for a little while. There's James Finney. He moved out when he was a kid, built a house next door in 1879, left and went to Colorado, came back, lived his life. 1900, he gets sick, and he dies at a hospital. But they bring him home to the family home, and they lay him out there, and they do his funeral in the home. So right there, we've got 4 funerals in the house. which is enough to creep anybody out.
Right.
There was another death in the house in 1914 or 1917, one of the two. It was William True. He was married to Agnes Finney, which was one of the daughters of Kate and MC. And he died there, but of course, his funeral wasn't there. And then in October 1939, Agnes Finney True passes away in her home. And they do her funeral somewhere else, at St. Benedict's, actually, down the road. And so right there, you've got 5 deaths in the house and 4 funerals. There was, when we went on our first tour, there were signs all over the house, okay? You walked through and you read signs from the book, from the TV shows, from whatever it is that somebody made up that they wanted to say happened in this house. Okay. So we were walking through, and I'm seeing stuff that talks about Deb and Tony, and it's like, well, I can validate that. That's in the book. I know that. We get to the basement. You can't go down. At this point, you can't go into the dining room. It's roped off. You can't go in the basement. It's roped off. And they're saying that the surgery happened in this dining room to this little girl, that they had the botched appendectomy, and I'm going, okay, well, I'm gonna have to research that, because I need to find out, did this really happen? We get in the kitchen, and there's a sign on, at the basement door saying that a woman fell down the steps to her death on these stairs. And it's like, okay, well, that should be easy enough to validate. If somebody died in the house, I should be able to find that, because the first time I went, only thing I was thinking was a little girl named Sally's here. That's what we're all thinking. There's a little girl named Sally here, and there may be a couple other spirits here, but it's a little girl. It's not a big deal. And so we're walking through, like I said, and I'm reading all this stuff. Oh, and there's a spirit here that his name is Brandon, and he's got the mind of a, he's an adult, but he's got the mind of a child. And it's like, well, where in the hell did they get that from? So I'm taking down all these, I'm taking pictures of all these signs so that I'll keep, I'll have them in my mind so I know what to research. And I'm researching, and I can't find nothing. Found nothing. I found the stuff that I've already told you about later on. But we went back a couple times, and on the self-guided tour, and hung out there, because you pay your $10, you go in, you can stay, technically 2 hours, but we ended up staying 4. Nobody kicked us out, and got done with that. And I went on the way home. I told my husband, I said, I got to find a way to get in there without paying for it. I said, this could get expensive. So I contacted the Chamber of Commerce, who runs the tours for, well, it's not owned by the Chamber of Commerce. It's still owned by the same man that owned it when Deb and Tony rented it from him. But he lets the Chamber manage it for him. So I contacted the Chamber and said, hey, do you guys need volunteers next year? And she goes, if you're serious, she goes, get back with me at the first of the year. She goes, that way I'll know that you're still serious. And so I sent a thing to her. I said, yeah, I'm serious. I said, my company will actually match my time. Wow. So if I volunteer for 40 hours, you guys will get $500. I said, my husband's company will also match his time. For every 10 hours he volunteers, you guys will get $150. So it's like, our companies will pay you for you to use us.
It sounds like a pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, and so it worked out. The first year they didn't use us enough, so they didn't get any. They got Ron's matching dollars, not mine. But ever since then, this is our 5th year. I've been volunteering. I volunteer all year long now, not just during September, October. I do all kinds of stuff for them as far as that's concerned, but that's a whole other story. But because I got to be a volunteer, I decided it was time to start researching it and finding out more. So before I went in there as a volunteer, I started researching. I started digging into things, the library, death records, census, all these other things, and deeds. Okay, so here's what's really interesting is that they say that this little girl came to the house with her mother in 1905. Okay, that's fine. I can understand that. And so let me give you a preface here. Before people come to the Sallie House, they usually take the haunted trolley tour.
Right.
Okay. On the haunted trolley tour, they tell them that a little girl died from a botched appendectomy and that she's haunting the house and she hates men. Okay. So they hear this before they come usually, and they actually believe it. They get really pissed when I tell them the truth.
Yeah.
Yes, we are part of all the same Chamber of Commerce, but I'm a volunteer. They don't pay me to tell the truth, tell this part of the story. They're paying me to make sure that you have a good time in the haunted location, and I'm giving you facts, not BS. Okay.
Well, and if I can interrupt for 1 second, it's I do value that because, as I sat there, the days preceding our conversation and began to kind of read some info about this, you do get a sense that you're just barely scratching the tip of the iceberg. And I think I'm mixing up my metaphors there, but you,
it's okay.
There's a lot of information and the real work that should be done, in libraries and probably ancestry with deeds and census information. You can't always do so quickly online, but I'm glad that you're doing it. I know that you came referred to me by San Diego Paranormal Eye, who spent some time with you there. I believe it was October.
Yes, it was. And I think they had been there before.
Okay.
Or at least somebody had been there before. For some reason, I think the man with the white hair. Stan
Thompson, yeah.
He had been there before. And so he had told me that I had told him stuff he had never heard before.
Right. Well,
and that's because I dig. I mean, I really do dig. There is so much stuff that's misnomers about the house. It's not just the house, though, but it's Atchison. That town is so haunted. I would say at least 70% of the town is haunted, but only 50% of the people will recognize it. And only 25% will talk to you about it.
Yeah.
And so the town grows exponentially during haunted season. People show up and they want to know the truth. And then we have people who want to believe that there's a little girl in the house. And I tell them all the time, you're not talking to a little girl. I don't know what you're talking to, but it's not a little girl. And I'll show them pictures and say, this is what's happened to me. I have been scratched. I have been pushed. I've been bruised. My necklace has been twisted up so much that I thought it was going to break. Luckily the chains are so skinny these days that it would have broke before it would have choked me. I've had my hair pulled. I've had twice now fold-up chairs thrown across the basement at me. Luckily, both times something stopped it from hitting me, but that's not good. And all of this, the bruising is what got Ghost Adventures' attention. I would have handprints on my arms. I wear long sleeve shirts, and we'd get home and there would be finger marks on the insides of my arms. Because to me it felt like maybe I wasn't telling the truth at the time. I wasn't giving the whole truth about the house. I was going into the urban legends, but I wasn't going into the truth. Well, you know what? I haven't been bruised since I've been making sure that I tell them everything that I can about the fact that the doctor wasn't a bad guy. If you watch things like live sci-fi, they've got that the doctor did abortions and threw babies in the hole in the basement. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Because if there had been bones, somebody would have found them when they opened up the basement to put the ventilation system in. They would have found all this stuff. Don't sit there and tell blatant lies. No wonder the doctor, well, that's a whole other story. But this past weekend, the doctor, or not the doctor, Live Sci-Fi was at the Sallie House for 5 days. We were supposed to have an ice storm, and so nobody could really leave or anything because, they told us not to. Right. So he was up there for 5 days, and I'm here. My phone blew up all weekend with people going, he's saying this and he's saying that. And it's like, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Well, the thing is by the second day, some of the spirits from the Sallie House were here at my house hiding out. And that's strange to me that they felt like they could be run out of their house. Earlier this year, I got rushed by Agnes Finney. She was upset because somebody had vandalized her house. Well, the thing is everybody's sitting there going, Dr. Finney is the bad guy and all this. And I'm like, no, he didn't even live here, people. In 1905, when somebody would have knocked on that door, there would have been Dr. Finney would have lived in that house with his wife, his mother, and his sister Agnes. Okay, knock on the door, you got this woman and her kid. So you got 6 people in the house. 1 passes away. How many of the 4 others could keep a secret, especially women, keep a secret that this little girl died in this house, that she died because the doctor was inept? None. Because 9 times out of 10, well, 100 times out of 100, I'm going to be out there screaming at the top of my lungs, this man killed my kid. This man killed my kid. Whether it was accidental or not, I'd have been yelling that my kid died. So there would have been some record. The other thing would have been, in 1913, Dr. Charles Finney was elected mayor by all the women. And I know 1913 sounds early for women's voting, but they were actually allowed to vote in Kansas before 1913. But he was elected by all the women in town because he was the one that was delivering their babies and taking care of their children. They were their doctors. So that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. Now, yes, he was asked to step down from being mayor in 1916 because it's also prohibition. He was providing liquor to the Eagles Club. Not awful, just bad decision, just not awful. I don't see that as being, making him a bad man. But there are other things. Before he became a doctor, he used to like to ice skate. He used to ice skate under the name of Ms. Colby from Baltimore. So he's a little weird, but again, not bad. Yes, he'd gotten into some fights in town with some other people, but he was young at the time. But he became a doctor like in 1894. He came home from St. Louis and he opened an office at 5th and Commercial. Again, not in the house. So these are things that people get kind of upset with me or excited about. They either get upset because I'm telling them, hey, more than likely that operation didn't happen in this house, or, they're excited because I knew it wasn't true. But I will tell you, there are strange things that happen in that house all the time. Why is it haunted? Don't know.
Well, I want to get to those really soon, but I mean, you kind of said something that kind of makes sense to me. Like with all the historical documented, deaths, you said 5 deaths and 4 funerals in the home. Mm-hmm. Why would anyone have the need to conjure up false stories, to draw attention to the place?
Maybe it was something that came up really fast on the fly to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's no proof. Only thing they had, there's stories that some little girl lived in the house before, and she had an imaginary friend named Sally before the Pickmans moved in. But the thing is they didn't come out with this until after the Pickmans made the news, kind of. Mm-hmm. They didn't come out with this until after that, so how valid is that? I kind of have a thing about if it's happening, why didn't you say something before? Right. But there is no proof of the house being haunted before. In fact, Mrs. Ethel Anderson, who owned the house after the Finneys, but before the Pickmans' landlord bought the house, his name is Les. I'm not going to give his last name, mm-hmm. But before. So you have the Pickmans own the house, or not the Pickmans, the Finneys owned the house until the 1950s. Mrs. Anderson bought the house after that, and she lived there for quite a while, and then it became a rental home, and then it was sold to Les. And Ethel swore up and down that there was no. I never had any spirit activity in that house.
Mm-hmm.
She was never nothing. So, did something happen prior to the Pickmans moving in that caused it to be haunted? And this year, some men came to the Sallie House on a tour. They used to live in the house, and they told me that they had put a pentagram on the floor when they were renting. They were like 14 years old. Him and his friends goofing off. They had seen this, and they just decided to draw it on the floor. And he goes, something weird happened. He goes, we cleaned off we cleaned up our chalk and we just ignored it and closed the door, and we moved out like a month later. And it's like, great. So here is the reason it could be haunted. Why? I'm not 100% sure. I don't have all the details. I had probably 75 people in the house at the time, so I couldn't spend a lot of time with these guys. But I did get their names, and I'm going to talk to them some more. But I want to find out more about it. And so you have the Pickmans move in. They're having all this activity. They don't know they didn't ask for it, even though Deb did want to have a paranormal experience, but she didn't ask for it. They moved in on December 31st, 1992, New Year's Eve. About a month later, they started having activity.
Wow.
And at first, they just kind of blown it off as being, just normal things. The timer would go off on the stove, or the timer would go off on the microwave, things like that. They didn't think it was anything major until after their son was born. And that's when things really started happening, was right after Taylor was born. Excuse me. And that's when a psychic came in. Her name was Barbara Connor. She came in, and she's the one that said that there was a little girl in the house named Sallie. And she told Deb to treat it like any other child. Bad idea. And it just escalated from there. She also told them that there was another spirit in the house that was a woman that was domineering, and that it was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that was later. That wasn't the same day. It was much later down the road. But they moved out in July of 1994. So, like I said, it's only 18 months. And Deb kept a diary of everything that happened. Some of the stranger things that happened was somehow, some way, their cat got dried in the dryer.
Oh, gosh.
And Tony said something about the noises that the dryer was making that sounded like tennis shoes, bump, 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 bump. Mm-hmm. And he worked nights. So it was during the day. He was trying to sleep. So he bump, 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 bump. So she opens up the dryer, and there's this rust-colored, dark rusty-colored stuff on the clothes, and that's when they found out that their cat had died in the dryer. But the thing is they weren't the ones who started the dryer or anything. She had left it open with the clothes in the basket. Some in the back. How you pull out what you want, you leave some in the basket, and you just leave the door open. And
right.
Mine's like that right now, spewing out laundry.
Yeah.
But somehow, it got shut and started after she left. Mm-hmm. So that's actually documented within her book as well. But there's at least 2 spirit cats in the house that I know of. There's a mention of another cat near the end of the book, but I'm not going to tell you guys about that. You'll have to read the book, and because it's upsetting. The Sallie House has a way of coming between people. It will enthrall one person and piss off another in the same family. It comes between me and my husband a lot. It comes between Deb and Tony, or it did when they lived there. Mm-hmm. The house, something in that house was trying to get Tony to hurt Deb, and Deb's thinking, oh, it's just a little girl. It's not a big deal. I like having the little spirit here and things like that. And Tony's going, it's not a little girl. It's a little girl. And, and they'll tell you this, because I've been to their house. We've talked about this. We never met until after Ghost Adventures aired. We met in last April. Mm-hmm. So needless to say, we didn't meet during the taping of Ghost Adventures or anything like that. We met well after that. But it is the strangest thing how I've been in the house with paranormal groups and watched paranormal groups break up right in front of your eyes.
Wow.
You'll have people that'll go in there and they will believe whatever it is they believe. There is no changing their mind, and the other person will sit there and fight with them over it. So, like, if somebody comes in the house and they want to tell me that, that Sally's playing with them in the closet, I'm like, okay, make sure you tell that spirit it has to stay here when you leave. Tell it it can't go home with you. And I've had to say that a lot to people. But yeah, they really do believe that they're talking to a little girl. And I said, well, just remember, demons lie. Just remember that demons lie.
Do you believe there's a demonic presence there?
I do more and more every time we go. After what I've seen this week, yeah, I do. Deb and Tony have told me over and over again that they believe that there's a demon in that house. My demonologist friends in Springfield, they believe that it's a demon that's there. For the longest time, I would tell people I don't know enough to say whether or not it's a demon. I know it's really dark, and I know that it's causing trouble.
Well, and that kind of leads up to the image we were talking about earlier. You sent me that image drawn by Adam Tillery, along with the journal entry that you made, and it's a very disturbing image of a creature that you said you witnessed several nights in a row. Do you mind sharing a little about that experience?
Sure. I was on Friday night. I was laying in bed, and I was wide awake. I was just laying there on my side, and I look up and I see my ceiling fan. Okay, not a big deal. You figure that's got 5 appendages, You look up, you see a ceiling fan, not a big deal. And I look back and there's this bright, it's red. It's getting redder and redder. It's coming closer and closer. And it's red, and I'm seeing these black blotches on it, kind of like that it's burned or singed. Mm-hmm. And the first night, all I saw was this face and these 4 arms and 4 fingers with really long claws. And I'm sitting there frozen and not knowing, first of all, what to do, just looking at it and just in total disbelief. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sitting there going, this isn't normal. I shouldn't be seeing this. And I'm feeling heat off of it. Okay. We had an ice storm warning that night. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's not warm out, nothing like that. Ice storm warning. Mm-hmm. My husband throws the covers off of himself. He's sleeping, but he throws the covers off of himself because he's hot. I'm sitting there feeling the heat off of this thing, and I can see the heat signature. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Kind of getting hazy on the sides from the heat.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And so I start praying in my head because I can't talk, I can't move, I can't do anything. I start praying in my head, God, make this go away. I don't know what it is. It's a welcome here, and it goes away. It probably lasted about 2 minutes. I'm not going to say it felt like it lasted a really long time, but it was only about 2 minutes. Next night we go to bed, and of course I'm terrified. So I'm laying there and I'm looking around, and it happens again. And this time I see details about its eyes and its nose and its mouth, and oh my God, it's got wings. Where in the hell did these wings come from? And it's holding me down. It's not touching me, but for some reason it's holding me down somehow. And I see these feet, and I'm like, those feet look wrong. And so I start praying again, and it goes away. Another time, this is about 2 minutes. The next night, it happens again. And I see everything clearly right away. And it only lasted about 10 seconds because as soon as I saw it, I started praying and it was gone. I've been doing cleansings in our sleeping areas because I don't want all the spirits to go away. I banished them out of our bedrooms because first of all, I should be able to sleep. Let's be honest. I should be able to sleep.
Right.
And part of this thing is it was trying to keep me from sleeping. I was told it was a low-level demon. I sent this out to Karen Smurl. Some people may know her from the Smurl family haunting in Pennsylvania. Sent it to her, and she said, I saw something like that 2 years ago in my backyard.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So I sent it to her. I sent it to Ken and Farrah Deal, demonologists in Springfield, Missouri. And they said they feel like it's a low-level demon, and they believe that it's one that's been trying to attach itself to me, and that 3 days is an omen. It was trying to take control, and that I did the right thing by taking control. So will it be back? Probably, but it won't be back for a while.
And I should point out that the date on your journal entry is really recent.
Yes. It was just, like I said, just this past week. Yeah. So, but again, like I said, Live Sci-Fi was up at the Sallie House doing stuff that they probably shouldn't have been doing. Ouija board sessions and all kinds of other stuff. And I already had 2 spirits from the house here anyway hiding out. So did this low-level demon just come here to taunt me? Because it was bad enough. Like I said, I was getting a lot of messages from different people telling me everything that was happening up there. And it's like, I don't care. And for people who are listening, I don't live in Atchison. Okay, that's one of the things that people don't realize. I live an hour and a half away. So if I'm going up there, like when I'm going up there all the time, you have to keep in mind that's an extra 3 hours out of my day that it takes for me to get there and get back.
Right.
So a lot of people just assume I'll get messages, hey, I'm going up here to Atchison. You want to meet us? Can we meet you? They're like, I don't live in Atchison, people. I live south of Kansas City.
Okay.
And Atchison is north of Kansas City. So that tells you how dedicated of a volunteer we are.
Right.
To drive, 3 hours extra out of our day to go up there to make sure that people have a safe and fun experience at the Sallie House.
Well, I do want to discuss the other drawings you sent me. You gave me 2 that you actually sketched yourself.
Yeah, not very good, are they?
Well, I mean, it's. I think in some ways it's more compelling because it's coming directly from the experiencer. Right. Artistic skill is, there's people get paid to do that, and anytime anyone tries to, represent something they saw, I give it credence, But you titled them, one of them it says the hollow-eyed entity, and the other is the basement entity. Yeah. I will have those images on my website as well, but what happened to prompt those sketches?
Well, the first time I saw the hollowed-eyed entity, I think that's Agnes Finney. I saw her in the upstairs hallway. I've seen her in the living room and the dining room. I think that she was just there to make people feel welcome in her home. Mm-hmm. She will come up to people, and they'll be fine. They'll be nice and comfortable, and all of a sudden, their hands are ice cold. We've even had one little girl, she was a high school girl, that was doing a documentary for school. Her hand looked like it had frostbite.
Oh my gosh.
From Agnes holding onto her hand. This happens quite often where people will come and sit on the sofa and one side of their body will get freezing cold and they'll go, why is it? And I said, well, probably because there's a spirit sitting next to you. And I'll put like a meter next to them and it'll go off. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting that you will feel these cold spots, and it seems to be where she's at. You will also smell lilacs a lot of the times when she's around, or lavender. And there is a rose scent that you get in the house sometimes, but that's not usually her. Mm-hmm. But with her, that's what you get. You get that. It's Grandma's house.
Yeah.
That's how you feel when you walk into the Sallie House. Everybody always says, I think I could live here. This feels like my grandma's house. It smells like my grandma's house. I mean, it really does smell like grandma's house. There's a mildew smell, but but I mean, that's what you feel when you walk in the house. You feel welcome, unless you are a medium, and it's been a bad day. You usually don't. They don't feel it usually. They usually walk in and walk out. But the basement entity, I've only seen him on the steps once, coming up the steps. And if you notice, he has a flat hat. I think it's Dr. Finney. I don't think that he's in the basement. I think he was just coming up the basement steps that day. I've also seen him on the steps going upstairs up to the sleeping areas. But I don't think that he's anything bad. It's just that's how I've seen him. He's rather short, maybe 5'5", maybe. I'd say even shorter than that, but I just know where he was standing on the steps, I was standing above him.
Well, I want to make a comparison between the two. The hollow identity, it's obviously female. You're very detailed in the garb, clothing that she's wearing. The basement entity seems like it's more of a shadow figure, the way it's depicted. And it's interesting because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot about shadow figures lately. I've had a few of those experiences myself, although I've never seen one in a hat, but that is a common report. I'm just wondering how I guess I'm trying to figure out a way to ask it, but how is it that one spirit can have all this detail associated with the appearance and another it's just solid black?
I think that this one was solid black because, first of all, the lights were off and I couldn't see as much detail as I guess I wanted to see. And maybe I caught him before he was fully manifested.
Okay.
Because it was near the end of the day. We were getting ready to leave. It was probably about 4:45, 5 o'clock or so. And it's not completely dark, but the basement is, once we turn out the light, it's dark. It's quite possibly could be the circumstances in which I saw him. Have I seen him not as a shadow figure? Yes, I have. It's just that was the day that I saw him the very first time, and first of all, I was shocked, but I was so grateful that I was able to draw it and be able to remember what I saw. The thing is I did see that it had holes for eyes, but I didn't see any eyes at the time. I really wish that some of the things that I see that a camera or something could pick up, and like the one I sent to Adam, there's no way I could have drawn that.
Right.
That's why I was very detailed in the things that I said, because I needed for him to understand exactly what I saw, because he would be able to take it and draw what I needed done so that I could at least put, an idea to a face,
right.
And now at least I've got something to go on from what I've been told on this entity from some people I respect. And, you figure, and Adams has experienced a lot of these types of things as well, so it makes it really easy to be able to talk to him and say, okay, this is what I've done, what I've seen. In fact, the journal entry is basically what I sent him. So, and you can see that it's very detailed in what I saw at the time. If I see it again, will I see it the same way? I don't know. I'll probably see some other detail that can be added at that time.
Do you feel like his representation was accurate?
I feel that it's at least 90% accurate.
Okay. Now you've got a lot of paranormal groups that are going through there, and I don't know if it's more groups or just random people that are there to go on, ghost tours, but how often would you say groups go to the Sallie House to investigate?
Yes, it's available for investigations, for overnight investigations, pretty much every day of the year except for, I'd say, I doubt you're going to get anybody to give you a tour on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve,
Right.
things like that. But yeah, you can get in there. It's not that awful expensive. It's about $400 for the first 4 people, and then about $50 a person for each after that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's comparable with the Villisca Axe Murder House, which, by the way, the Villisca Axe Murder House and the Sallie House have the same street address.
Yeah, I was reading that yesterday.
Yes. That was a fact that the first time Johnny Hauser went to the Sallie House, he said he was asked to go by Live Sci-Fi. And so he decided to go, and he goes, the guy told him the address, and he goes, well, I can remember that. And he goes, well, why? And he goes, because it's the same address as Villisca. And he was like, oh, crap. And so that fact actually, Johnny told me. And so, see, we're related to the Villisca Axe Murder House, too. My husband's great uncle was the sheriff in the investigation for the Villisca Axe murders.
Oh, wow.
So we're related to that as well. And then, but back to the Sallie House. Yes, you can get in there. There's day tours available for the public, $10 a person, starting the Saturday after Labor Day to the first Saturday in November every year. That's usually $10 a person. Is it going to be $10 this season? I don't know. We're changing. We're getting a new tourism coordinator coming up here. Mm-hmm. And then, and like I said, overnights are available. Calendars out there on visitAtchison.com. Go to Explore and Experience. And under that one, you'd hit Haunted Atchison. And then in that, when you click on that, you go down to the middle of the page. It says Sallie House. Click mm-hmm. on that, and it'll show you. You can actually get guided tours, mm-hmm. Days, evenings, and weekends. It's different prices. It runs for 10 people, starting at $100 to $150, depending upon what time it mm-hmm. is. So it's not awful, and you will get, depending upon who your tour guide, depends on what kind of tour you get. So I recommend any of them. Any tour guide is going to do a good job. So you'll have a good time.
How often would you say any particular group or person walks away without any sort of documented evidence of paranormal phenomena?
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. Spirits don't act on command. So there are times when nothing's happening, right. Period. Even when the Pickmans lived there, they said that they would go 2 or 3 months and nothing would happen, and all of a sudden all hell would break loose. So it's kind of like that. Right. It depends on some people. I will tell you, they really, really want to have a paranormal experience. So even if it's an orb in a picture, it's going to be a paranormal experience to them. Mm-hmm. So how often? I'd say maybe 25% of the time they walk away with nothing.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Even still, I haven't been doing investigations very long, but I know some of the places I've gone and gotten things, I've gone back the next time and got nothing. So. Oh
yeah, we did that at the Belvoir Winery, the mm-hmm. Oddfellows home in Liberty, Missouri. Mm-hmm. We went there the first time and got all kinds of stuff: shadow person, spirit communication, all kinds of stuff. Next time we went, got nothing. Couldn't even pay a spirit to, we even tried bribing them with money. Didn't work. But we also did that with, Adam Tillery that we were just talking about. He's got a paranormal group as well. And we went there and we had a great time. But we just didn't get any paranormal experiences the second time we went. That's the thing people don't understand. You can go on paranormal tours and investigations, and a lot of it's fishing.
Right.
You may not get anything. So, you got to have fun. Now, Malvern Manor, we went just a few months ago. That's the one that's going to be on Paranormal Lockdown. Mm-hmm. That's where we had 13 spirits came to me before, and 10 validated themselves, and history validated them as well. And I got scratched. I was changing. It started snowing on our way up there. And people who know me know I don't do snow. Mm-hmm. I was changing into something warmer because there's no heat except in one room. there, and it was cold, and I was sick. So again, I didn't know I was sick at the time, but as I was changing, I got scratched down my back to where it drew blood. And
Gosh.
I said, so I got scratched. And they go, well, since paranormal lockdown's been here, that's been happening. But see, they couldn't tell anybody till that day that we were there that paranormal lockdown had been there.
Oh, okay.
So they just told me that, and they said, yeah, it's been happening. And this is Josh Hurd. I don't know if you know Josh Hurd. Brush with Evil 1 and A Brush with Evil 2, those movies are his. He's also got like 5 books. He is one of the owners of Malvern Manor in Malvern, Iowa. And so he was shocked as shit that I got scratched and that it was bleeding.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where he's like, in the office? I go, yeah, in the office, because I just went in the office to change and close the door, and as soon as I closed the door and I got my shirt off, I was getting scratched. And I was like, how in the heck did this happen that fast? And what was funny is that my cousin showed up at Malvern Manor. Hadn't seen her in 17 years. First thing she comes in to see is me pulling up my shirt going, I got scratched, look at this, to my husband. And she hadn't seen me, and this is the first thing. She's like, maybe I shouldn't have come.
Wow.
So it was just kind of really funny. Scary, too. But we had all kinds of paranormal experiences that night there. But the history lends itself to that as well, with it being previously a home, then a hotel, a boarding house, and then a senior citizens or a nursing home. So it has all kinds of history there. So make sure you guys watch that on February 10th, Paranormal Lockdown. And there's a...
Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, and another group from Kansas City is going to be on that as well. Somebody from Apex Paranormal. So they got a lot of videos out there on Malvern.
Yeah, I'll definitely be tuning into that. I like that show, and I think what they're doing is great. I've already gone way over our time here, and I apologize for holding you up so much, but I just can't get enough. I may have to get you back on the show in the future if you're up for it.
Sure.
But if there's one final thought that you could convey towards anyone interested in visiting the Sallie House, what would you tell them or recommend for them?
First thing is make sure that you don't go in sick. That's the first thing. Because if you're weakened at all, you may end up with a paranormal experience that it's going to live with you forever, and not in a good way. That's the first thing I'm going to tell them. Second, make sure that you say your prayers before you go in and when you come out, and make sure you keep yourself cleansed after that. I come home after every time I'm there and take a nice long Epsom salt bath to rinse all of that off of me. And then the other thing is one difference about the Sallie House compared to a lot of them, it does have gas, electric, and water. So at least you will be, a little bit more comfortable than you would be in some other places. But the main thing is be protected spiritually. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Well, where can people go to find out more about you and your radio show and or social media presence? Well,
I'm on Facebook as Denise Pridemore, and my radio show is The Paranormal Pride. I'm on every Monday night at 7 o'clock Central Time on paranormalking.com. And I'm on every Monday except for holidays. So like President's Day is coming up, I won't be on. If there's a Canadian holiday, I won't be on either. The network's out of Canada. So just keep that in mind. My archives are out there. I'm on I think this is my 67th show coming up.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. I love doing it. And if you want to check out the Sallie House out there on online, the Ghost Adventures is out there on Daily Motion. It was season 10, episode 6, if you're interested. My voice, not this voice that you're hearing, but my real voice is what's opening the show, in case anybody's wondering why I sound weird. And then Paranormal Warnings on YouTube. There's some footage there of the Sallie House that I can say is really good. And Haunting History with David Glidden, and that one's got a really good one on the Sallie House too. He let me go into the history pretty good, so I think you guys would enjoy that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for all of your time today, and it really has been a phenomenal conversation. So, as I said, guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg with the Sallie House. Denise is a huge influence as far as being a historian who has really gone above and beyond in fact-checking all of the rumors about Sallie House. There's a lot of stuff online that may or may not be true, but Denise backs everything up that she has explained with actual documented data stating, who lived in the house and when, what murders, or not murders, but what deaths took place in the house. And I think that really just makes her more of a credible source for some of this information than what you might read online. So as I mentioned before, keep your eyes open for a little surprise that I have planned up in the next couple weeks here. So guys, if you've never checked out my show notes, this is the episode to check out. There are tons of pictures that Denise has provided for us, the drawings that we referred to on the episode. There's photographs not only taken by Denise, there's one or two from other people in there. I've linked to articles and actually quoted some articles that have been written in some of these paranormal magazines that Denise has provided me. There's also the image of the kind of low-level demon figure that she was talking about in this episode that was actually drawn by Adam Tillery. That drawing itself is enough to give you nightmares. And you'll also see a picture of Denise in there with Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures fame. So again, you can reach this episode's show notes at deviatus.com/Pridemore. That's Pridemore. Guys, I am not finished with the Sallie House yet. We're going to have at least a couple more episodes involving the Sallie House from different people's perspectives. So if you haven't subscribed, if you want to stay updated with this stuff, go to deviatus.com and subscribe. I am on iTunes and just about every major podcatcher out there. For the full experience, I totally recommend watching the Ghost Adventures episode on the Sallie House. It was Season 10, Episode 6. I do have a link in the show notes. And check out the Haunting History with David Glidden. And even still, more resources for you. Denise's radio show, it's called The Paranormal Pride. It airs Mondays at 7 p.m. Central Time. I have a link to that on the show notes as well. Thanks again, guys, so much. If you would do me a huge favor, please rate and review on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. You will be hearing from me within the next week or so stay tuned. Have a good week, guys. Talk to you soon.